I'm Alexa and welcome to my channel. This is my very first video. I figured I would just start it out by telling a little bit about our birth story. I was diagnosed with cerebral palsy at the age of 18 months. I have spastic diplegia, so my right side of my body doesn't always cooperate. I've always wanted to be a mom. I figured that having a baby with cerebral palsy was going to be a little bit of a journey, and I did want to start doing a video during my pregnancy, but I had a lot of challenges with pregnancy in the first place, so decided to start after he was born. What better place to start than our birth story? This is Ryle, by the way. He is almost 9 weeks old. So to start my birth story, I was sorry, Bubba. I was scheduled to have a C-section at 39 weeks and 0 days. Okay. I was scheduled to have a C-section at 39 weeks and 0 days, but obviously I'm telling this because my body had different plans. I wasn't supposed to go through labor at all. That was me and my OB's plan from the very beginning, that we would just schedule the C-section so labor would hopefully start on its own. Tuesday, the 3rd of June, I was having like some, not pain, but something didn't feel right. So I called my OB and he told me to go into labor and delivery and they would put the baby on the monitor and see how everything was going. And at this point I was 36 weeks exactly. When they did that, everything was good. We got there, they found his heartbeat, vitals were good. But an hour into being there, not even, probably a half an hour, I started having contractions 5 minutes apart. So because of my scheduled C-section, the nurse there said, if you keep having these contractions for probably another hour, we're probably just going to keep you because you're already scheduled for a C-section, and if they don't want you to go into full labor, you're probably just going to stay here. Well, fast forward about an hour and 10 minutes, my contractions completely stopped, and there was like nothing on the screen at all, which was so weird because they were every 5 minutes consistently for an hour and 10 minutes. So when they stopped, they checked me afterwards and I was barely a centimeter dilated. They told me to just go to my OB appointment that I had scheduled later that day at 2 p.m. Before I left, they did a test, like a swab called the FFM, I think. I could be wrong, but it's a swab that they do to make sure you won't go into labor within the next 2 weeks. Well, that came back and that was negative. So we were like, okay, well, we'll just go home and wait it out. And I had been going to physical therapy consistently 3 times a week for probably about 5 weeks. I had asked them if I could still go to therapy and stuff like that. And they said, yeah, that would probably be good for my body just because delivery was coming sooner rather than later at some point. I mean, I was 36, so I had about 4 weeks left. I went to my OB's office at 2 p.m., my scheduled appointment. He had checked me and said that everything was good and that I was 0 centimeters dilated, not even the barely like I had gotten at the hospital, and that I was 0% effaced. So there was going to be no baby anytime soon, and I would just have to wait till my scheduled C-section. Later that day, when I had gotten home, noticed like a little bit of changes in my body. I was more uncomfortable, but I was told that that would probably happen because I had been checked twice. I actually lost my mucus plug later that day. I didn't know that's what it was because, I mean, I've never been pregnant before. Didn't even know what this was supposed to look like. I just ignored it and went on about my day because they told me after being checked, your body is a little bit like irritated, so some things would happen. And then fast forward to Thursday night, probably I would say, I think around 10 p.m., I started having contractions 5 minutes apart again, but I was told on Tuesday that I wouldn't go into labor within the next 2 weeks, so I didn't think anything of it, and that they were just Braxton Hicks. My husband clearly thought I was crazy because at 5 minutes apart, you think labor is starting, so he just kind of was on standby and watching me like a crazy person because even though I thought labor was not starting, he was convinced otherwise. For about an hour and a half, I was having contractions, and through that hour they started getting closer together. When the hour had finished, they were at 3 minutes apart for probably about 15 minutes now. My husband actually called the OB and he was like, her contractions are progressing. I know we got that test done, but I'm just worried that she's going into labor. He said that the chances of me actually being in labor are very unlikely. The OB wanted me to drink water for about an hour and a half and put my legs up because I was probably just dehydrated. Through that hour hour, my contractions were getting closer and closer together. When this hour had finished, they were probably about 2 minutes apart. Some of them came within a minute, so they weren't completely right on track, but they were 2 minutes apart or closer. I had almost finished up that hour and a half, and I kept having to pee probably like every 10 minutes. That seems like an exaggeration, but I promise you it was not. On the last time that I had gone to the bathroom before this hour and a half was almost up, I told Andrew I was going to go to the bathroom and then we could call him. I was sitting there going to the bathroom and I had peed and I was like, I'm not getting up because I'm just going to have to go in 5 minutes anyways. Like I had mentioned before, I do have cerebral palsy, so some sensations and things are a little bit different for me, and especially having a baby sitting like so low, I was unsure if I would feel every sensation because he could have been sitting on a nerve or something like that. In the process of me sitting on the toilet, I had felt like little drips of water, but I didn't feel myself actually peeing, which was weird because when I had peed, I had felt it. And then this had started happening and I didn't feel anything, I just heard it. So Andrew was in our bedroom playing his video game. I was sitting there and I was like, okay, well, I guess I'm just peeing and I can't feel it because CP, some weird things happen sometimes. 45 minutes later, yes, I sat on the toilet for 45 minutes. This water was consistently like trickling out. While it was trickling, my contractions had completely stopped. I had felt nothing, no pressure. I was just like, okay, this is really weird, like, and really annoying. Like, why am I still peeing after 45 minutes? Andrew yelled at me from the bedroom and said, I don't think you're peeing, I think that's your water breaking. So we should probably call your OB. And I said, no, my water will not break. I was told I was not going into labor for 2 weeks, so why is this happening right now? It had been probably close to an hour at that point that I was in denial that my water had actually broken. I honestly just thought, okay, this is really embarrassing. I'm peeing my pants and I can't feel it. Well, Andrew put me in the truck. He said we have to go. I called my OB on the way to the hospital and I said, I'm pretty sure my water has broke, but because of that test, like, I'm not confident. I can't explain this any other way. He said, well, I need you to go to labor and delivery and I'll meet you there. We live about 10 minutes from the hospital, so we got there pretty quickly. Fast forward like 30 minutes of getting checked into labor and delivery and everything like that. I had still told all the nurses around me that I'm so sorry, I'm peeing my pants. Like, I cannot feel this happening. I guess this is CP and this is really embarrassing and I'm sorry. Like I said, I had not been having contractions this whole time, so I didn't think that my water had actually broken. And this one nurse, she looked at me and she said, your water is broken. You're not going home tonight. Like, you're having your baby. And I literally looked at her and I laughed. It was like 1 a.m. at this point. Andrew had come back. They checked my vitals, but they still had not verified that my water was actually broken. So I kept asking for them to check. They kept going on with the admission process. And then they finally checked me. And they said, well, you're 2 centimeters dilated and your membranes have absolutely ruptured. So you're having a baby today. But because of my cerebral palsy, I had to be screened for a couple other things, like seeing if my body could go in the correct position to push. Kind of talking to me about what my options are. Because I had gone into labor and actually I was thinking maybe I'll be able to push. Like, it would have been really cool if I could have had a natural birth. And I was talking to Andrew about it and I was like, would you let me try to push? Like, how do you feel about that? He said, whatever you want to do. Like, I just want you to be comfortable and I want our son to come in happy and healthy. The anesthesiologist had actually come in and talked to me, and he said that because of where the nurse told him the position of where the baby was, I wouldn't be able to push him on my own. I could either get a spinal block and do a traditional C-section, which they preferred. Putting a baby under general anesthesia isn't recommended. They will do it if they have to, but it's not really the best situation for the baby. So I said, whatever is better. I'm open to getting a spinal block and whatever you have to do just to make sure I don't feel what's happening and I don't want to, like, endanger my baby or anything like that. I had had surgery on my back when I was 4 years old and the scar is very, very thick. So when I had had needles in my spine in the past, it didn't go very well. The anesthesiologist was behind me, prepping my back, and the nurse I had been with all through labor and delivery and triage was in the operating room with me, because you have to stay very, very still. Because of my CP and the type of CP I have, I'm very spastic. So sitting completely still is almost impossible for me, especially when you're getting a needle shoved in your back. So she was holding me from the front, keeping me completely still. I was bawling my eyes out because I was just all nerves at this point. As I was saying, it took them 7 tries to get this needle in my back. On the last try, I had heard them saying that there isn't even a guarantee that they hit the right spot. My heart rate went up to 200 something. His was actually dropping. They were getting a little nervous at this point. They said, since we don't know if we got it or not, we're not even going to try, and we're going to put you right under. Being under general anesthesia, they don't want the husband or anyone in the room but the doctors. I was like, oh, okay, well, can someone tell my husband? Like, I just started bawling because it's just not what you had in mind originally. I think we had went into the OR at 6:30. If you're under a general, they want the baby out within 10 minutes. Like, they don't want you under anesthesia with the baby in there longer than 10 minutes. He was actually stuck and lodged in the gap that was created in my hip. There's a little bit of backstory to this, but because my body just couldn't hold his weight very well, there had formed a gap, so it was very hard to get him out. When they had finally got him out, he wasn't breathing. He just wasn't responding well to anything that they were doing. They had to put him on oxygen. Of course, it's during COVID, so mine and Andrew's parents weren't allowed to be with us. We could only really FaceTime them. So that was a little hard, going through all this and not being able to like talk to your parents or ask what the doctors were like trying to explain to us, because we've never heard any of these terms before. As I was saying, I was like so nervous because I was looking at all this Google stuff, and all I was finding was things about cerebral palsy. I just kept going through these things in my brain, like, how could this happen to me? He was actually starting to respond a little bit more to things at this point, still not anywhere near where they wanted him to be. How am I gonna be a mom with a disability and raise a child with a disability? That was like something I really, really, really struggled with, and not having my mom there. Fast forward, I think 3 days, he was starting to respond more to tests, like a lot better, and he wasn't as floppy as they were saying. And at the very end of our hospital stay, we were in there for 6 days. On the last night that we were there, they had told us that they actually were very surprised with all his results, and they actually thought that he had muscular dystrophy, and they had tested him for all these things without Andrew and I knowing, which I was actually pretty grateful for, because if I would have known that this test was going on, I don't think I could have kept my cool, I guess. Fast forward, everything's good. He's responding more. They let us go home as long as we had an appointment with his pediatrician. Day by day, he started getting so much better. Now he's 9 weeks old, and he's the most perfect, healthy, happy baby that I could ever ask for. There are some things that him and I have to figure out together, like mobility challenges and things like that. I'm figuring them out little by little and day by day, but we have a pretty good routine together now, and I am very grateful. This is all I've ever wanted. I am just so proud of myself and my body that we could get through this. So on my Instagram, I posted a little spot for people to ask questions of things they want to know, and a lot of that was about my daily routine and things like that. So I will post another video. I'll get my daily routine together for you guys, and then we can do some of the other questions that were asked. Thank you so much for tuning into my video, and we'll see you on the next one. Okay, I'm done now.